Coming up, a new take on a classic design and a labor of love on another. Getting back into the left seat of a technically advanced aircraft and a glide to success. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
The dream is real, a truly affordable personal jet aircraft. The Subsonics kit is priced at only $42,000. Kit plus engine is still under $100K. Add instruments, upholstery, and paint, and you're flying at SonicsAircraft.com.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haynes and Melissa Rudinger.
Welcome to AOPA Live This Week. I'm Warren Morningstar. Melissa is on assignment this week, and Tom is off on an adventure again. So where in the world is Tom Haynes?
Well, hello, Warren. You know, sometimes you just have to get away, and what a better place to do that than remote Utah, and what a better way to get there than a highly capable Quest Kodiak. But, you know, it's not all play for us. We loaded the Kodiak at North Las Vegas Airport with photo and video gear and headed 2 hours northeast to here in Moab. And from here, we'll be putting the Kodiak through its paces in the high desert backcountry for a few days with help from Quest and Redtail Adventures. We'll give you some details next week and give you a full report early next year when the March issue of AOPA Pilot comes out with its Destination Special section. But one thing is for sure, our video and photo team will capture some great images in this remarkable landscape out here. Tempting as it may be, though, among the red rocks, one thing we won't be doing is flying low. Too often that leads to a tragedy, and we've seen too much of that recently. Warren?
Yeah, sadly that's true, Tom. You know, 3 Icon A5 accidents this year, 2 of them fatal. And it's a serious blow to the reputation of an aircraft that many view as exceptionally well designed with a host of safety features not seen before in light sport aircraft. Now, these accidents prompted Air Safety Institute Executive Director Richard McSpadden to write an unusual online commentary. I talked to Richard about it earlier today.
There's enough information out there from eyewitness accounts and from video that's been put out on the web that we can see the manner in which the airplane was being flown. Now, we don't know the probable cause, and we should wait and see what that actually is. The commentary was more directed to the manner in which the airplane was being flown and the focus on low altitude flying, which I think it will be helpful to GA pilots.
We should point out that in a previous life you were the commander of the Thunderbird, so you know something about low altitude flight and pushing the aircraft to the edges of its envelope. So what are some of the things that we should be thinking about?
Yeah. There's when you get down into the low altitude environment, there are some dynamics that need to constantly be a part of your subconscious. And as you mentioned, fortunately for me, I was trained in that, extremely well trained for that. And so there are a couple of things that you want to constantly keep in mind when you're at low altitude. One is what we call time to impact. And that is, once you get at lower altitude, the lower you go and the faster you go, the more reduced your time to impact should you have any kind of anomaly, excessive bank angle, pitch angle, a distraction, or whatever. So you want to constantly be aware that your time to impact will be measured in seconds. So your processing needs to happen a lot faster. And also, you need a lot more focus on just flying the airplane and avoiding terrain. So that's principle number one. Principle number two is, and kind of in a response to that, anytime you're in the low altitude environment, your response to anything unusual is climb to cope. So if you're in the low altitude environment and you're speeding along, looking at terrain or flying over water, and anything happens that's out of the unusual, gets your attention, you drop a pencil, a bird flies by that you weren't expecting, you hear kind of a skip in your engine. Your first reaction is not to take a look at that and see what it was. Your first reaction has to be climb to cope.
And you can see my full interview and read Richard's commentary on our website.
Well, low altitude flying presents one set of challenges and risks. Another risk is something called single point failure. The Air Safety Institute has just released a new accident case study on just that. The video recreates the accident sequence of an instrument flight from South Carolina to Central Connecticut. The pilot is ATP rated, has more than 4,000 hours, and has owned the Bonanza he's flying for more than 30 years. He's on top. His destination and airports along the route are all IFR. He loses his pressure pump and consequently his attitude indicator.
By this time, though, the aircraft has entered a steep spiral, descending over 4,000 feet in 20 seconds.
And November 40 Hotel radar contact lost. November 40 Hotel low altitude alert, 90 miles north-northwest of Republic. MVA is 1,600. November 440 Hotel New York approach.
There is no reply.
You can learn how this accident might have been prevented by watching the full video. You can find it under Training and Safety, Air Safety Institute, Safety Videos, Accident Case Studies.
Well, the first time it flew, a landing gear failed, but this time, success. A helicopter crew dropped the Dream Chaser from 12,000 feet, and it flew itself to a perfect landing at Edwards Air Force Base. The unmanned mini shuttle is designed to take supplies and cargo to and from the International Space Station. If all goes as planned, sometime in 2020, it will perch on top of an Atlas rocket for its first mission to space and then return to Earth.
Meanwhile, lots of pilots are returning to flying thanks to AOPA's You Can Fly Rusty Pilot program. This year, more than 250 Rusty Pilot seminars across the country. 4,700 pilots have attended, and nearly 40% of them have gone on to complete their flight review. That means close to 2,000 pilots back in the air this year after having knocked off the rust. And one of those Rusty pilots is our own Warren Morningstar. And Warren, I understand that after your flight review and several checkouts in several different aircraft, you still wanted more training.
Well, that's right, Tom. You know, instructors have told me, and it's my own personal experience, that, you know, basic stick and rudder skills are never really forgotten and they come back pretty quickly. But in the 6 years that I was out of the cockpit changed considerably. So I wanted some help in getting up to speed in a technically advanced high-performance aircraft, specifically your A-36 Bonanza. One way to get your chops back is to attend a type-specific seminar. I recently went to a 3-day Bonanza pilot training program, and while it's aimed at Bonanza and Baron pilots,
all of our flight training and a great deal of our ground training is geared toward operations. So flying, weight and balance, fuel consumption, getting the most out of your flight, aeronautical decision making, those things all are not specifically even Bonanza related. They could apply to any airplane.
if you're coming back after some years away, you'll find that many airplanes are now filled with advanced avionics and glass displays.
So what's different is the high technology panels that I'm flying now. So Garmin 500 or the GTN 750. So it's actually a lot easier, but it's been a little bit of a heavy lift learning the new equipment.
Ginter has been away from IFR flying for 15 years and is now transitioning to a B-36 Bonanza.
It's exactly the right way to get started. So, in fact, I have not flown a single hour in the Bonanza yet in the left seat, so I'm about to do that this afternoon, so I'm looking forward to it.
I'm paired up with Bill Hale from Colorado. He helps me learn how to make the boxes do every kind of instrument approach.
Probably going to be vectors, isn't it?
And we explore the edges of the Bonanza envelope I haven't experienced before.
Bank over. Now give it a good pull. See that just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And as soon as you relieve the pressure, it's out of the stall.
Bill Hale calls it an aviation boot camp or an aviation summer camp. You know, we're all joined by a common love of aviation, our home lives, our vocations. It doesn't matter. We're here to all share in the fellowship of aviation, learn from each other, and hopefully improve the profession.
So, and you know, Tom, it really was a tremendous experience to get that type-specific training. There are a few things I learned about the Bonanza that I didn't know before. For example, in recovery from a spiral dive, you actually push forward rather than pull back because the Bonanza wants to return to its trim speed so quickly. If you leave it alone,
right,
it'll overstress the airframe.
Yeah. Yeah, that BPT training, they do a wonderful job, really experienced instructors, and just a very nice program. You do learn a lot. I've been to it several times, so I agree. You pick up a lot of tips, things that you didn't know about the airplane.
And the other thing that I've had a bit has been interesting is learning to adjust to the glass panel. You know, it's after 40 years behind an attitude indicator where the bug sat on the line between the brown and the blue, to get used to the glass display where the brown is down below and the horizon line is a white line. Kind confuses me sometimes.
Right. Well, the airplane turns 45 years old this year, and she still flies great, but you're right, the panel looks nothing like it did when it left the factory in Wichita back in the day. So it brings a lot of great utility to the airplane, though, but you're right, there is a transition, takes a while to get used to it.
It does indeed, but now there's so much more information available in the cockpit than we ever had before. For anybody who's coming back in after being away for a few years, it is a wonderful change.
Yep, it is a great update, and actually got lots of new airplanes coming online that take advantage of that technology with the new gamma numbers.
Well, that's right. In fact, things are looking up a bit for general aviation. More people are buying aircraft this year. The General Aviation Manufacturers Association, or GAMA, reports that total airplane shipments are up 1.7% compared to the same time last year. Piston engine airplane sales are up 4%. Now, Cirrus remains at the top of the piston engine market, followed by Textron, Diamond, Tecnam, and Piper. But, even though Piper still feels pretty good about how they're doing, they delivered 42 aircraft in the third quarter of this year, and total deliveries for the year are up 24%. That includes 23 of the M600 turboprops, 23 out the door so far this year.
And so, there's that and a lot more. There was a lot of celebrating in Vero Beach last weekend. Piper invited owners and friends to fly in and toast the company's 80th anniversary.
Obviously, you go back and you think about what William Piper was trying to do back in 1937. His vision was that everybody should be able to learn to fly and have a plane, and of course, his vision was very much that everybody would be able to own a Piper Cub. Piper's legacy has really positioned us. We like to think ourselves as the value brand, and that's where we are today. I believe we've got great products that deliver great value to our customers.
But of course, the product that started it all was the J3 Cub, that Johnny Little airplane that was general aviation for so many people. Several proud J3 owners flew their Cubs in for the 80th anniversary celebration. And among the oldest was this 1941 Cub, restored by husband and wife Carl and Donna Miller.
Now, we did keep it original, so it's 65 horsepower, does not have any external or auxiliary fuel tanks, no electrical system, has to be hand-propped. It's an original bird.
The original bill of sale was signed by Bill Piper himself. Carl and Donna thought the aircraft was in pretty good condition when they found it, but
after attending a seminar on rib stitching, we could tell that the two wings had been covered at different times because they had used a different stitching process, and it has wooden spars, and during one of the annual inspections, the IA told us that we had to address the varnish on the spars because it was coming off.
So off came the skin and more surprises.
There were bad repairs that had been done over the years. We found ribs, aluminum ribs that had been repaired with masking tape, and wooden spars that had been repaired with duct tape. At certain times during the airplane's history, its value had dropped to a point where people weren't willing to spend a lot of money to repair it.
But the Millers were willing to spend the time and the money.
We fly with the door open all the time, and I can't think of a better airplane to have and fly around Florida. We typically stay around 500 feet unless we're over a congested area, and we enjoy the sights and the sounds of low-level, slow flying.
Any advice for somebody who's thinking that maybe they'd like to buy an airplane like this and do a restoration?
Yes. You might want to let somebody else do the restoration and buy what you want.
And so, Warren, as you saw, it really was a beautiful airplane. They did a great job of restoring it, and they clearly enjoy flying it.
Oh, they do indeed. They really do love that airplane. It was a beautiful restoration job. And, I'm thinking about maybe if I can get my wife to learn how to do some rib stitching, maybe we'll tackle a project like that.
There you go. I'm sure she'll love that.
All right. And coming up after the break, a high school in Texas that will make you question what you did with your young life, and a remarkable airplane on fluids.
Did you know it's now fully legal to fly your plane to Cuba? Call the experts at Cuba Handling and we'll walk you through the process. Our team will make your flight simple and will create the experience of a lifetime. From hotels to cultural experiences, we do it all. Visit CubaHandling.com.
Welcome back. Well, what were you doing at age 17? Had you built and flown your own airplane by then? AOPA Live's Paul Harrop shows us a school in Texas that will make you question what you've done with your life.
Dashboard for the campus announcements, you'll find the poster that says Think.
You better pay attention. Class is in session. But it's the students you need to pay attention to. We're all going to be working for them someday. This is Mr. McAfee's freshman aviation class at McKinney High School in North Texas. They're field testing the AOPA high school curriculum.
It is very worthwhile.
It's getting these teens to dive headfirst into aviation.
We're working on a worksheet called Trade Plan, and you have to kind of do some research on the website about planes and then how the website works and stuff like that.
Whether it's looking at how airplanes are bought and sold online or who was the first in powered flight.
What do you think? Was it the Wright brothers or Gustavo Whitehead?
Well, I mean, there's more evidence on the Wright brothers that flew, so I'm going with the Wright flyers.
The AOPA curriculum is helping bring aviation into the classroom.
I was very pleasantly surprised when I first saw the AOPA curriculum. The attention to detail. Everything down to the student notes. They took the time to go through and make it simple for a beginning teacher.
And it makes the teacher look good in front of the class.
I mean, he gives us a lot of work, but like during class, he's a pretty good guy, and he cracks jokes here and there. So.
But it's not too hard to get this group into it. Rena Barrows likes to fly with her dad. Forget the car. She's got her eye on the left seat of the family Cirrus.
Just being able to travel, and then I think I enjoy flying.
What's the first thing we do when we take the blue stuff off?
Write the label.
The name of the part.
Yeah.
And McKinney Schools has partnered with the Eagle's Nest program to build an RV-12. They've got the first one flying, and that gives students a great sense of satisfaction and accomplishment.
It's been wonderful. It's been the most eye-opening experience that I've ever had.
I really appreciate every single day in this program and how it's affected the rest of my life.
In McKinney, Texas, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
The High School Aviation Initiative is part of AOPA's ambitious program to stimulate the pilot population. We've already mentioned that program. It's called You Can Fly. Learn more about our approach to protecting the future of our industry on our website.
Watch out, Florida pilots. President Trump will be returning to his Mar-a-Lago resort. FAA has told pilots in the Palm Beach area to expect a TFR during the Thanksgiving holiday from November 21st to the 27th. That TFR will once again close Lantana Airport, costing the small businesses there hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenues. AOPA has urged security agencies to consider permitting an approved program for pilot vetting and also security screening at Lantana Airport. And that would be modeled on methods in effect for the so-called Maryland 3 airports near Washington, D.C. So far, Secret Service won't budge on that one. And the White House policy change has made it harder for pilots to fly to Cuba, but it's not impossible to do so.
And no longer can you arrange your own itinerary. It has to be sponsored by a U.S. organization that is approved by the Office of Foreign Asset Control, OFAC. And they also have to have someone accompany you while you're on the ground. So there are some changes in that category. Makes it more restrictive. However, it is still possible. You just have to seek and go through an approved license organization.
We have more information on our website, and I can tell you, it's worth the trip, and you know that too, Warren.
Well, I sure did. You and I both had the rare opportunity to travel to Cuba some time ago, and it was a delightful experience. And the Cubans were extraordinarily welcoming and very interested in general aviation.
They were, and then getting there by general aviation is a great way to go too.
It is indeed. It's only 90 miles across.
Right.
And finally this week, it's the best of both worlds, a beautiful Wako biplane and a float plane in one. AOP Editor-at-Large Dave Hirschman takes the new Wako on floats for a flight.
Brash, over the top, totally impractical, and absolutely irresistible. This Wako YMF-5F is the first of the modern biplanes handmade in Battle Creek, Michigan, to set upon amphibious floats and it's a mind bender.
It's got an incredible wow factor, not only on the ramp, but also in the water. If you're at a dock with this thing, it's for good or bad, you're an instant celebrity.
Waco Classic President Peter Bauer's real motivation for building the first amphibious Wako is personal, not strictly commercial.
I received my float rating about a year ago and was just thrilled with how fun it was to fly and the types of different experiences you could have with a float plane.
A number of recent innovations make the float Wako possible.
The culmination was getting a new propeller approved from MT, which is a lightweight composite propeller. A few years ago, we introduced what was called the D model Wako, and that featured a new 300 horsepower engine. Combined with these composite floats that I'm sitting on from Aeroset, those three things really gave us what we needed to make a great float plane.
On its four wheels, the big candy apple red biplane is mountainous. The airplane's handling qualities are more sedate than wheeled versions. The roll rate is slightly slower, and pitch and roll forces seem heavier but harmonious. Runway landings are childishly simple. Put the landing gear down, hold 85 miles an hour on final, round out, and you'll touch down a few seconds before you expect to. It's just that tall. On the water, the Wako glides serenely. Its 300 horsepower radial engine rumbling with the calm confidence that it can roar into the air at a moment's notice. Takeoffs on the water are surprisingly short. The Wako accelerates briskly at full power, and with full back pressure, it's on the step in about 3 seconds. Water ops are pure exhilaration. And exhilaration for pilots and passengers is what the float Wako is all about.
This airplane, from the pilot's perspective, was just wonderful. But you put a passenger or two passengers in the front seat, and they'll, in every case, find it to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience and something that they remember for their whole life. It's just a whole lot of fun.
Dave Hirschman, AOPA Live.
The new float Wako costs just under $600,000. It's a bit pricey, Tom, but it's a lot of fun. I know you got your seaplane rating a while back.
I did, and that one looks like a lot of fun. I mean, think about that unusual configuration, a biplane, a radial engine, and an airplane designed in the 1920s and 30s and built in the 21st century. So what an unusual combination on floats. I'm not sure it's the most practical airplane in the world, but it sure does look like a lot of fun.
Well, and you certainly would attract a crowd on the ramp.
Absolutely. There isn't anything else quite like that around.
There sure isn't. Well, and that does it for this week. Melissa and Tom will be back in the studio next week. Thanks so much for watching, and we hope you'll join us again next Thursday for another edition of AOPA Live This Week.
There are many important things to consider before purchasing an aircraft. Let the experts at Aerospace Reports help guide you through the process. We combine expert knowledge with our long-standing commitment to personalized customer service to perfect your transaction. Learn more at aerospacereports.com.